tell. Today was my last day there. I moved. I moved today and start a new job on Monday. So I am going to be in charge of an impact team, area impact team. Yeah, where we deal with specific crime areas, and it's going to be a little busier.
Yeah, that sounds more interesting than what you were doing before.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I enjoyed what I was doing, but I'm going to be in it now. So
that's what your job does.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yep. No, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So looking forward to the change. So. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The guy Joe. Man, I could not.
And that's his son.
Yeah, I knew his son.
Like Glare, I think it's JT. He's a chiropractor.
Okay.
And is that Julio? The Glare. I can't with my glasses. I think it's Julio.
Is Mike coming?
I don't know. He didn't say what. In fact, wood flooring throughout his house.
Oh, is he?
And,
Okay.
He
okay.
was on his birthday the other day.
Oh,
He wanted to
right.
finish, and he wanted to get that done.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry, you're going to turn this on when I got it on now, but you'll turn me on when we get up. Test. Got another 2 minutes. Okay, here's your 2-minute warning. Right there. It got so quiet. Yeah. No, I'll be running around with sound. Well, hello, y'all. We're ready to start from the table back there. If y'all want to come in and listen to Jay. Wait, they're coming, I think. Anyway, glad you're all here. This is a replacement for the thing I do at the house, and we've got some people never been at the house. But this time, instead of having a two-dimensional Jay Seegert, we got three-dimensional Jay Seegert. So we'll tell you a little about him. I'd like to begin with a word of prayer. Precious Father, again, we come before you tonight to praise you and glorify you and just delve into the authority of your word. We will be talking about creation, but the whole emphasis is Scripture and how we need to look at it and to give it its proper authority in our lives. We thank you for bringing Jay here with us, and we just pray again that hearts would be open and that we'd have another angle on witnessing to our neighbors and friends after we leave here. And we give all thanks, praise, honor, and glory in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Now, a little about Jay. He's going to tell you a lot about him. I first saw this guy about in August of last year. He was at the Berean Call Conference, and it was a new and different creation speaker. I look around for new things going on in the creation world, and I never heard of this guy before. Maybe because he's from Wisconsin, I don't know, and he's not a Bronco fan, but he's okay. Anyway, then I got to meet him. I had an honor of working with this Logos group in November. I was the chauffeur with another friend of mine. We drove him to the airport and around. And Jay was there. We had about 30 high-level scientists. They all believe in a six-day creation. They're all Christians. And they're talking about the speed of light and geology and biology and all these sciences at the professor level. Jay takes what they're saying and he boils it down to what I can understand. Maybe some of you guys can understand at professor level, but he's the mediator that puts the cookies on the lower shelf. So I'll get off here now and introduce Jay Seegert from Creation Education Center, Wisconsin.
we all have 2 copies of each gene, we all have parents. So mom's copy of her DNA, dad copy of his DNA, each give you the same. So you've got 1 copy of each gene, coding eye colors, hairline, all these things. One came from mom, one came from dad. So these dogs have one from mom and dad, genes may perfect. When they breed together, they will pass on one of those genes. They don't get to pick which one goes, one will go or the other. If they both pass on a gene for short fur, the puppies come out with 2 genes, but they both make short fur. It doesn't matter which gene is used, or if they combine, puppies can have short fur. On the other hand, if they both pass on a gene for long fur, the puppies can have long fur. If one passes on a gene for short fur, the other for long, they come out long fur, short fur, or it could be medium length fur if the genes are both activated and combined. That's kind of how genes work, and it produces these fur variations. But it doesn't just fur, it does all the features you see in dogs. It's big dogs, small dogs, long ears, short ears. All the features you see in dogs are pre-coded in the DNA. Now, if you take a look at these 2 sets of animals, set A and B, which set looks more similar? This animal set A. Not what I can tell this animal set B. That's because the animals in set A are really the same kind of animal. Genesis says that God created creatures to reproduce after their kind. Yes, they can produce a nice variety, but it's always the same kind of animal. Today, you can breed dogs, eagles, coyotes, and all of these things. And you get something that looks like a dog, eagle, coyote, wolf. In fact, you can breed a dog and a wolf, and you get a wolf dog. It's real science. It's not a product. It's physical. It's a little like the dog, a little like the wolf. What you can't do is breed a wolf and a dog and get monsters. Because they don't have genetic information how they speak to other. There's other animals you can breed together. You can breed a zebra and a donkey and you get a donkey. It sounds funny, but it's real science. Why? Are those completely different animals? It's basically the same animal, it just has a nice pink color. You can also breed a lion and a tiger. You can get a lion. Why? Because they're both large cats. It's the same kind of animal. Not surprising. What you can't do is breed a lion and a kangaroo. You get a lion kangaroo. Because they're not the same kind of animal. There are a bunch of other animals that can also not breed together. It would be these here. This is what happens when we have Photoshop too much time on your hands. Not quick I am either. The reason they're fun to look at is you know that's not going to happen. You don't expect to see it, you don't see that. That was the built-in variation. So now let's take a look at the random mutations. We are now imagining transforming from a church into a safe person. I am now a PhD biology professor. And I'm going to teach how evolution works. I think it's here. And an organism is going to reproduce. So it will need copies of DNA to produce the children. So it does that. Children.
The great variety of life we would have on this planet through this process. Now, I guarantee you, the non-Christian students sitting in that class say, you know what, that makes perfect sense to me, can't argue with that, that's science. Like, the sitting in that class say, you know what, that makes perfect sense to me, can't argue with that, that's science. Like, the sitting in that class say, you know what, that makes perfect sense to me, can't argue with that, that's science. Like, the sitting in that class say, you know what, that makes perfect sense to me, can't argue with that, that's science. Well, we are now going to take a closer look at these mutations, and they really do what they say they do. Most of you are old enough to remember Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey was famous for telling us the rest of the story. I love that guy. We are now going to look at the rest of the story, the mutations. Can they really do what they're claimed to do? I'm going to make 3 major points about mutations. First of all, that they're purposeless, undirected, and random. Secondly, that they occur in the DNA. And thirdly, that they're almost entirely detrimental or bad. We're going to go through each one of these very quickly here. Start out looking at the idea that they're purposeless, undirected, and random. Here's a quote from Nova Online. This is an evolutionary source talking about mutations. It says it's sometimes convenient when trying to make sense of evolution to think of changes within a species of having a purpose, as though Mother Nature has some intended goal she sets out to achieve. The bacteria want to survive, someone might reason when thinking about the declining effects of antibiotics, so they evolve into resistant strains. Of course, there is no purpose in evolution, just random mutations within DNA, most of which are detrimental to the survivability of the organism. These are the 3 points that I just made. I actually had produced that previous slide, and I found this quote thing. It's cool. It's backing up exactly what I was going to say. Here's another quote from Discovery News talking about dinosaurs. It said, presumably the sauropods evolved large body size as a strategy to deter predators. What are they saying? Here's kind of humorously what they're implying. Apparently, at some point in the past, dinosaurs were not as large as they eventually came to be. And they're sitting around the fire one night, campfire, and they're saying, hey guys, we need to come up with a strategy here to deter our predators, or we're going to go extinct much sooner than we're supposed to. Do you have any ideas? And they all say, no, our brains are too small. And then one of them says, hey, I got an idea. What if we got some machine guns out, we could shoot our predators? And the first dinosaur says, second dinosaur says, I know, what if we hopped onto our Harleys and rode off into the sunset? Third dinosaur says, I got an idea. What if we evolved really large body sizes? We could scare them away. The first dinosaur says, no, that's a good idea. Are we all in agreement? Okay, great. And they go off and they get big. I don't know a scientist on this planet who believes it. Evolutionists don't believe that a creature tries to do something and then it happens. But the popular literature will give you that impression. The fish were running out of food sources in the ocean, so they needed to evolve lungs to crawl up on the land to find new sources of food. And the students write it down. It makes sense that they had to do something or they're going to die. How does the fish just say there's not much food around here? I know. I'll evolve lungs. Doesn't even know what lungs are. Doesn't even know what's up on land. And how do you just try to change your DNA? And you can't do it all at once, so how do you survive over millions of years as you're trying to evolve lungs? And now you can't swim very well anymore, but you're not suited for land yet. And how does that work? And what is the evidence for that? It doesn't make sense, but the students are trained, they're taught what to think rather than how to think. And they're kept very, very busy. Don't question things. You write it down, because if you don't put this on the test, you will fail. And you need to pass your class to get a degree, to get a job. You need to get through college. You don't want to make waves. And no one else is arguing, so you just write it down. And that's typically what happens. But again, the leading scientists don't believe that there's any purpose behind evolution, but the popular literature, documentaries, magazine articles will give you that impression. It needed this, so it evolved it. So there's no purpose going on there. Secondly, these mutations are happening in the DNA. So we'll look at DNA very quickly here. DNA is like a very, 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 very complex blueprint with lots and lots and lots of information on it. We're going to look very briefly at the storage capacity of DNA. Don't question things. You write it down. If you don't put this on the test, you will fail. You need to pass your class, get a degree, get through college. You don't want to make waves. No one else is arguing, so just write it down. That's typically what happens. But again, the leading scientists don't believe that there's any purpose behind evolution, but the popular literature, documentaries, magazine articles will give you that impression. It needed this, so it evolved. So there's no purpose going on there. Secondly, these mutations are happening in the DNA. So we'll look at DNA very quickly here. DNA. Don't write that down and make a note of that, because that's not true. You would need 1,000 CDs. Don't write that down, I lied again. You would need 1 million CDs. That's only partially true. You would need 1 million CDs given to you every minute for 9.5 years. Then you'd have enough CDs to back up just a teaspoon amount of DNA. That's 5 trillion CDs. That gives you an impression for our national debt. It's phenomenal. And that all happened by accident, though. The DNA we have, that's just what nature does. To me, that doesn't make sense. I don't have enough faith to believe that. To me, it screams design, but that's what we're seeing in our DNA, has an incredible storage capacity. Now, this is what DNA looks like. You're familiar with a coiled up ladder there. It's like a set of encyclopedias. And the rungs on the ladder, that's what we call nucleotides. That's equivalent to like a single letter out of the whole set of encyclopedias. Each rung is like a letter out of the set of encyclopedias. When you group a bunch of rungs together, that would make a word. Grouping of the nucleotides or rungs makes words. Then, thousands or tens of thousands of these rungs put together, that's what makes a gene, which would be like a chapter, single chapter in the whole entire set of encyclopedias. Then a single volume from the set of encyclopedias, that's what we call a chromosome, which would be thousands of genes, thousands of chapters. And then the entire set of encyclopedias, that's what we call the genome. People, we call it the human genome. I'm sure you've heard the terms before. Some of you already know all this. It's just a little bit of biology 101. Now, this last section, this is where it starts to get really interesting, that almost all of these mutations, these copying errors, are bad. I'm going to tell you how the story of evolution goes, and I'm not trying to be derogatory when I call it a story. I seriously think it is a story because, again, the scientists were not there to see it. They can't reproduce it in a laboratory. They can't test it directly. They literally have to tell a story of what happened in the past. And this analogy I'm going to give you comes from Dr. John Sanford from Cornell that I mentioned at the beginning in his book, Genetic Entropy. Very powerful book showing how our genome is going downhill. It's not getting better and better. All the science shows it's going downhill, getting worse and worse over time. So much so, they worry about what they call error catastrophe, like how much longer can we be around and still function with all these mistakes in our DNA. The analogy he used in this book was, he said, let's say that you have a single-celled bacteria there, and the amount of information in that bacteria is about the amount of information you would find in a biochemistry textbook. And that's true. That's a lot of information in a tiny microscopic bacterial cell. These things are not simple. They call it a simple cell. It's not simple at all. The amount of information is about the amount of information you find in a biochemistry textbook. But remember, evolution has to turn that single-celled organism all the way into a human being. So we got to change that thing. So let's think about this. Here's a sample page from the biochemistry textbook. I've got some text there up on the right. If we just simply copy this textbook over and over and over and over and over, millions and millions of years from now, we'll just have a lot more of these textbooks. It'll be the same thing. So you can't just copy it. You have to make changes to it along the way if we want to improve it. What are these changes? Well, we've been talking about those changes. They're the mutations, the random accidental copying errors. I'll give you an example of what they look like. First, we have a duplication. And the word the up there, I duplicated the T. It doesn't spell the anymore. But I don't know what you're thinking. If you were reading that, you'd say, oh, it's just a typo. The, and you move on. That's not how our genes work. Our genes would see that and say, I've never seen this before, I don't know what it is, it would skip it, it would move on. Then we have a deletion mutation. You take the first E out of energy, delete that, it doesn't spell energy anymore. Then we have a substitution mutation. We take the N out of electron and put a Y in there instead. It doesn't spell electron. These are samples of mutations that are happening. Here's something I think is fascinating. You could literally ask a kindergartner, what is your favorite book? They tell you. And then you ask them, if we were to take your book and just randomly open up, and with our eyes closed, just stick our finger in there, whatever letter our finger lands on, we delete it. Or we change it to a different letter. Or we duplicate it. We put that same letter right there. And then we open up to another page randomly, stick our finger in there, and delete the letter, or change it, or whatever. We just keep doing that to your book. What's going to happen to your book? Will your book get better and better and better and more exciting? A kindergartner will tell you, no, it will get worse and worse. In fact, I won't be able to read it anymore. A kindergartner understands this. You have to be highly educated to not get this. And that's what happens. These PhD scientists are plenty smart. They're brilliant. But they either don't know about this, they don't get it. It's usually a pride issue or it's a spiritual issue. They see it, they just don't want to deal with it. They want evolution to be true. They don't want to see evidence for creation in the Bible. So they try to ignore it and just say, well, somehow it's okay. They try to explain it away. Again, most scientists aren't aware of all these things, but we're going to be getting this cutting-edge stuff next that just kind of blow you away and show you further there's no way that evolution is possible. Because the challenge for evolution gets worse than everything that I've just said right now. It's going to get much, much worse. Let's say you were looking at a section of your DNA, and you were reading it, and it spelled out, was it a rat? I saw it. Kind of strange. Let's clean this up, take the punctuation away, put it across the screen. Was it a rat? I saw it. Now, in English, we read from left to right. You may have noticed already, you can read these backwards. Was it a rat? I saw it. It's called a palindrome. Kind of fun. You read forwards and backwards. Not a very meaningful sentence, but just kind of fun because you can go forwards and backwards. This is what we learned fairly recently, that much of our DNA can not only be read forwards, but can also be read backwards. But the challenge for evolution gets worse than that, because that was the same message forwards and backwards. Take a look at this. The word desserts. If you read that backwards, it spells stress, which is what I get when I don't get desserts. Now let's introduce a random mutation here. We'll just randomly delete the T. You know what? It doesn't spell desserts anymore, but it also doesn't spell stress. One random change messed up two messages because we got messages going forwards and backwards. But we don't see little words in our DNA that flip back and forth. We see up to entire chapters of complex instructions that can be read both forwards and backwards. And let me give you an idea what I'm talking about. Let's say you all have a job in a cell phone factory, and it's your training to write the instruction manual to give to the manufacturing plant for them to make the phones. So your boss comes to you one day and says, I have a project for you. I need you to write the chapter in the manual that explains how these phones are going to download apps from the web. You say, yeah, okay, that's your training to do that. He says, okay, thanks. He's walking away and he says, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one little minor detail. When you write that chapter, you have to write it in such a way that if we read it backwards, it will explain how the phone's going to play music files. And you're looking at him saying, you're kidding, right? That's impossible. He goes, no, I'm sorry. We only have so much room in the manual. You got to do that. That is humanly impossible. It cannot be done. You can't even program a computer to do that. I did computer programming for 18 years. It can't be done. Yet this is what we're seeing in our DNA. We read it one way. It's a set of complex instructions that make certain proteins that carry out a certain function in your body. You read it backwards, totally separate set of instructions that make completely different proteins that carry out a different function. And the major point here is there's no way particles interacting in nature are going to create an information system like that. And when you copy it and you make random changes to it, that you're going to make it better. It's not going to happen, but the challenge for evolution gets even worse than that. Look at this phrase here, I like chocolate later that evening. The reason it's weird is it's two phrases. I like chocolate, which is true, and later that evening. They overlap in the middle, L-A-T-E, they share those words. This is what we discovered in our DNA. We actually have overlapping instructions in our DNA. Let's introduce a random mutation. We'll just substitute, take the E out of there, put an H instead. It doesn't spell I like chocolate. It doesn't spell later that evening. One random change messed up two messages because they overlap. But we don't see just little segments that overlap in our DNA. We see up to entire chapters of instructions that overlap each other. But the challenge gets worse than that. Same phrase again. Let's underline a few segments here and bring them down below. And it spells I like her hat. It's called splicing, alternative splicing. Let's introduce a random mutation here. We'll just randomly delete the H. It doesn't spell I like chocolate, but it also doesn't spell I like her hat. One random change messed up the main message, and it might mess up the spliced message. This is what we've seen in their DNA. There are spliced messages, but we don't see little segments that are spliced like that. We see up to long sentences, short paragraphs that can be spliced together to make more information. So here is the example. You take that biochemistry textbook. You can read it from cover to cover, and you just learned a lot of information. Now you go back, and you take long sentences from here and short paragraphs throughout the book, different places, put them together, and you got another set of instructions. That's humanly impossible. You can't write a book that way. To do those things, that's what we're seeing in our DNA. But the challenge is worse than that. We have embedded information in our DNA. Take a look at this sentence here. Can you show Mike Olson checks from Oliver's labeled facts and set it on Herbie's desk? Strange sentence. Let's circle every ninth letter. When we do, circle those letters and bring them down below. It spells chocolate. There's a theme going on here. It's my dog. I can do that. This is what we're seeing in our DNA. We have embedded information. So you got the straightforward message, and then you can go every so many spaces, put them together, you got another set of instructions there. Let's introduce a random mutation here. We'll just randomly delete the W. What that would do is that would shift all the letters after that. It would shift them over one space if you took one out. And then the ninth letters would be these letters here. You bring them down below and it spells that, which is meaningless. So one random change messed up the main sentence, but it then also messed up the embedded message. But guess what? The challenge gets worse than that. We have encrypted messages in our DNA. I actually had 2 interviews with the CIA to work in the cryptographic analysis division. Interesting story for some other time. Let's take a look at this. You have a phrase going across the screen there. It seems completely meaningless. But what if you found out there was encryption? You found out that everywhere there's an H up there, it's really an A. Everywhere there's a B, it's really a C. In fact, everywhere there's a Y, it's really a T. So it's a little bit hard to see, but you see those 2 Y's up there, those are really T's. When you make the substitution, you see it spells this as an encrypted message. This is what we're seeing in our DNA. We have encrypted messages in our DNA. So you get the regular message, and now you substitute all those letters, and you got another message there. Let's take a second to think through what would it take to create an encrypted message system, keeping in mind there's no God, there's no creator, there's no designer. This is just what nature does. It's what every public school and every state university teaches. Whether they think there's a God or not, they say science can explain all this. This is what nature does. We don't need God or designer to create anything. Science has explanations. So, okay, what would nature have to do to create an encrypted message system? Well, here are the steps. First step is you have to develop a language system using symbols. So, let's say we had these 3 symbols here. When we put them together this way, that's going to represent an A. When we have these 3 shapes here, we put them together this way, oh, that's going to be a B. You have to create an entire alphabet by particles smashing together in nature. Then, you have to be able to create and define words. When you put these 4 letters together, it's going to represent that object there. You have to create an entire dictionary and definitions by particles smashing together in nature. Then you have to be able to write meaningful sentences and paragraphs, which requires rules of grammar. What do particles smashing together create rules of grammar? Then you have to create the encryption system, the key there, the particles smashing together. Once you have that key established, you have to create the system to do the coding and the decoding. You can talk to Stan about all this. I think he's involved in some of this in his career. And then after that, you have to be able to develop the ability to read and carry out these instructions. The whole thing is useless. How do particles, random smashing together nature, create all of it? There isn't a scientist on this planet who can begin to explain that. There is no natural explanation whatsoever. Every experience we have screams that this only happens through intelligence. Again, this is what we're seeing in our DNA, but the challenge is worse than that. We have 3D information in our DNA. It's a little bit harder to depict, but I've got, we're talking about proteins here. DNA codes and makes proteins that carry out all the functions in your body. And proteins aren't these little straight ladders or anything. They get folded into 3-dimensional forms and shapes. If they don't get folded just right, they're useless. It's like a lock and a key. So if you don't fold them perfectly, they're useless. They get disassembled, parts get reused. So I'm going to write just 7 words across the screen up there, and we're going to fold these words as best as I can in PowerPoint. We're going to stack them on top of each other. When we stack them this way, you'll see another piece of information going up and down, the word success. So if we introduce a random mutation, delete some letters, change letters, or we don't stack them right, we lose that piece of information going up and down. That's what we have in our DNA. You've got these strands that code make all these things, but you've got some stuff on the strand over here, stuff on the strand over here that's involved in proteins and all that, but now when you fold it in 3-dimensional shape, now this piece is on top of the other one, and you can read it going this way. It's another piece of information. How do random processes create all that and make it better and better as we make random changes to it? It's not going to happen. I've actually skipped a few details. You can thank you for that later. But back to the original premise, that certain things look great from a certain distance or a certain angle, like that bright red BMW. We thought we would open the hood there and see that beautiful engine, but when we pop the hood on evolution, we see the engine is missing. There's nothing there to drive it. It's not going to happen. There's an interesting quote from a geneticist. It says, genetics has no proofs for evolution. It has trouble explaining it. The closer one looks at the evidence for evolution, the less one finds of substance. In fact, the theory keeps on postulating evidence and failing to find it, moves on to other postulates. Fossil missing links, natural selection of improved forms, positive mutations, etc. This is not science. One other quote, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. I believe that there is a God, and that this is His Word, and it can be trusted, and I believe that He created everything just the way that He described it. Do I believe that? Yes, I believe that. Is it a blind faith? Not at all. There is so much evidence that this is true. I think that nature just screams that it's not an accident. Our everyday experiences show us that information only comes from intelligent sources. We've never seen random particles creating information. So when we see information all around us, why wouldn't we conclude it must have come from an intelligent source? And those are our experiences. Well, the reason you wouldn't conclude that is if you don't want to conclude that and you decide ahead of time, I'm not going to accept that. One scientist, Dr. Scott Todd from K-State University, said even if all the evidence points to an intelligent design, such an hypothesis is excluded from science because it's not naturalistic. So he's saying even if all the evidence supports a creator, a God, a designer, we're just going to write it off because, well, that can't be science because science only deals with natural things. That's only because they redefined science to rule out God from the beginning. It's not that something in science told them God doesn't exist. As they decided, we're going to do things scientifically, we're not going to allow supernatural to be a conclusion whatsoever, no matter what this looks like. If it's leaning that way, we'll say, well, that can't be true because that wouldn't be science then. And we've already decided ahead of time, we're not going to allow that to be part of the ultimate conclusion. So, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A here. Before we do, I'm just going to very quickly describe the resources we brought along. I don't travel around and try to sell things. But we bring things because there's no way you're going to remember everything that I just said. So we bring things along so that you can have access to them. If you don't get them from me, there are other great ministries out there that you can get them from. And everything we have is available on the website as well as on the table out here. But the Bible doesn't say, hey, if you get a chance, maybe spend some time with your kids or grandchildren and talk about some of these things. It commands us to have answers, to be ready with an answer. Not so that you can go out and win arguments, but so that you can be more confident when you're sharing the gospel message. That's what it's about. It's not about telling someone they're wrong and being right and beating them over the head. No, it's about being confident when you're sharing the gospel message. If you share the gospel and say, yeah, but you can't trust the Bible because it's filled with every contradictions and science and disprove the creation account and all that. You have some answers. You can say, yeah, I know you've heard that. It makes kind of sense, but let me share a few other things as to why you can actually trust it, including the gospel message. You want to start with the gospel message. You want to start with scientific arguments. So we need to be ready with an answer, and also so that our own children and grandchildren don't end up walking away from their faith. So it's all about equipping ourselves. And again, our resources are available on the website or at the table out here. Very quickly, we have 9 individual DVDs that were recorded in a professional TV studio, so they're very well done. You don't have to be embarrassed about lending them to anybody. They're very graciously presented and very gracious towards skeptics and atheists because I'm convinced this is a spiritual issue. They're not just trying to give people a hard time. They really don't see things the way we do. The Bible actually says they don't see things clearly because they've already decided to reject all the evidence God has given them, just in nature itself. And because of that, God says He's given them over to a darkened mind. They don't think clearly anymore. So when you just throw facts at them, facts don't speak for themselves. They have to be interpreted. And they're always interpreted according to what they already believe. There is no God, everything's an accident. So they're going to see things differently. So we need to be very patient and gracious. In fact, if they don't see Christ in you, and I could care about anything, you need to be very gracious so that the Holy Spirit can be drawing them and opening their eyes to see things properly. So we got 9 individual DVDs, including the talk that I just gave. That's the one with the picture of DNA on the front of it. Exact talk, all the slides, bad humor, unfortunately, and everything else. The other green one with the chimpanzee, that's the big picture, the origin of the universe, origin of life, and origin of species. There's a DVD on there on the inspiration of Scripture. How do we know God wrote this? Well, I believe the Bible because I'm a Christian. Why are you a Christian? Because I believe the Bible. Why do you believe the Bible? Because I'm a Christian. round and round. So I discussed, how do we know that God really wrote it? It claims it is, but what about the Book of Mormon? What about the religious book? Why only this? So I discussed that in our DVDs on dinosaurs in the Bible and things like that. Not a question. Then we have a 12-session seminar series. I took content from. Then we have a 12-session seminar series. I took content, shortened up the talks, and made 12 half-hour talks, and then put a study guide in there so you can use it for Bible studies, homeschool groups, Sunday school classes, men's studies, whatever. It's a little bit shorter, so you have time to watch it and you have time to discuss it with follow-up questions. So content 5 of the 9 are in there. The 4 that aren't in there, 3 of them don't have to do with creation itself, they have to do with evidence of inspiration, scripture, and a few other things. The one I just gave on DNA is definitely about creation, but it's not in it because we produced that one after the series was already done. Then the book that I wrote, this edition came out about a year and a half ago. I've been told by some of the world's leading creation scientists, including John Sanders from Cornell, I think it's the best overview that's out there, which I was completely honored to hear. So that's available on the table. Very easy to read, conversational style. Doesn't just hit you in the face with all the science. It eases into things that tell stories about when I was in college, interactions with professors, discusses how does science work, what is a worldview. Then it gets into origin of the universe, origin of life, origin of species, fossil record genetics. And then there's a chapter in there that I entitled, in the table of contents, it's called The Most Important Chapter. Why would I call it that? Because what are people going to do? They're going to flip back, oh, it's the most important thing. It's the gospel message. That's the most important thing. And there's another chapter in there entitled The Best Evidence for Creation. People are going to flip back to that too. What is it? Evidence for the inspiration of Scripture. Because if this was written by God, then everything it says is true. And it says God created everything. So that's actually the best evidence. Yeah, we have other stuff too, like DNA and all that, but this is really ultimately the best evidence. So the book is available out there. I've written 7 pocket-sized booklets. I did these first. Most of this information is in the book. If you get the book, you have this information. And I made shorter pocket-sized versions. Some people won't read a whole book, but they might read a little book that I carved 14 pages. Or if God created the universe, who created God? Or topics like that, dinosaurs in the Bible, those are available back to the table as well. Then I have a monthly email newsletter once a month. Send out an email newsletter. In it, I bring up a different challenging question each month. This month's question is, should you take the Bible literally? And it's kind of a leading question, like, you said yes, you said no. So I answer that. It's on our website. You've got that article there. But each month I take a different, intriguing, challenging question and I answer it. Or if something comes out of the news, they discover these gravity waves, proof of the Big Bang, the Bible's wrong. And you're like, gravity what? I'll explain it. No, this is actually what they found. It's not really proof of the Big Bang, and it's certainly not this proof of the Bible creation. So that's what we do with our newsletter. You'll see our speaking schedule as well, so you know where I'll be speaking, when next. And then, just very quickly, I've been speaking for 30 years. I've never charged a penny, never will. The main way our ministry moves forward is through our monthly supporters. And I always tell people, I think that your first and foremost financial priority is your local church. But beyond that, if God convinces you think this is an important message and other people need to hear it, if you were to decide to become a monthly supporter, we want to give you a free set of our DVDs and a free copy of my book. Not just as a thank you, but so you'll have a great set of resources to strengthen your own faith, so that you can mentor your own children and grandchildren, and then you can reach out to your friends and neighbors with some great resources to help answer some of their tough and very sincere questions. So if you're interested, we're a nonprofit organization, so it's all tax deductible. You can see me at the table after if you're interested. And then here's something that everyone can probably do. You can help us get connected, speaking other places. This is the primary thing that I do, is travel around speaking nationally and internationally as well, and this is how it works. Most of you probably have a connection somewhere. Maybe you used to live in Wyoming, so you know your former pastor. Maybe your uncle is a pastor somewhere. You know somebody. What we ask you to do is fill out this form. We have it on our table. Just put your contact information at the top, and then maybe put ABC Church Wyoming. We don't even need the name of the church. We don't need the name of the pastor's phone number, email address. We just need your contact information, and then you supposedly know somebody somewhere. You give that to us, and then we just ask you to contact that person you say you know, your former pastor, your uncle, your nephew, whoever, and ask them, would they accept a phone call from me? That's all you have to do. You don't have to memorize my background and all this stuff. Just say, could Jay call you? And if they say, sure, then you email or call me and say, here's the pastor's name, here's his phone number. And I will call and tell them that we don't charge anything for our engagements. We're really ultimately about the authority of Scripture. It's an incredibly powerful message, but very, very gracious message. And we can discuss the engagement. cold calling does not work. So I can't just call a church in Wyoming and then, sure, come on out. It doesn't work that way. You can help us stay connected, so I'll get informed on the table there. And to stay connected with us after tonight, stay connected to our website at CEC as in Creation Education Center and WISC as in Wisconsin. There's free articles on the website, there's video clips, speaking schedule, and a bunch of stuff that you can contact us through email or phone call if you have questions going forward. So with that, when we do Q&A, I have the website up on the screen again, also the Grand Canyon trip flyers on the table, or right from our website, you'll see the same information there. So while we do Q&A, you'll see the website up at the top of the screen there. We'll do it this way. Stan has a mic, he'll pass it around. You can ask any question you want. It can be related to what we covered. It can be related to Ice Age, dinosaurs, the flood, the inspiration of the Bible, anything you want. Ask whatever question you want. I will try to be relatively brief in answering it so we get to as many questions as we can in a few minutes. I will then close in prayer, and I'll be at the table afterwards if you have additional questions. Who's got the first question? Okay, I'll have the second question. We'll wait for the mic so that everyone can hear the question.
Who originated DNA? What scientist or?
Well, Francis Crick is one of the main.
In what
Crick
year
and
was
Watson,
what
in
year?
the 50s, discovered the structure. Actually, some of the stories say that this is blanking on her name, female scientist that really discovered some of it, but she didn't get the credit for it. I don't know what the truth is, but they say Watson and Crick in the 1950s discovered the structure, and Francis Crick, initially he just said, well, this is just an accident. It's what nature does. It's very complex, but nature probably did that. The more he looked at it, the more he realized, I just can't keep saying that there is no way that happened by accident. That was designed, but not by God. It was designed by aliens, because he's an atheist. So he cannot allow himself to consider that maybe God did it, but yet he saw the evidence for design was so strong. He had to conclude it was design, but he had to rule out God because he said God didn't exist. So he chose to believe that maybe 4 billion years ago, somewhere else in the universe that we don't even see, life forms existed, aliens that created life in seed form, put it on spaceships and flew into the earth, deposited here, and then it grew from there. As crazy as that sounds, here's one of the most brilliant scientists choosing to believe that, put his faith in that, because he did not want it to be God. So again, it has nothing to do with intelligence. These guys are plenty smart. They don't need more intelligence. The Bible says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, and many scientists don't fear God. So they might be intelligent, but they're not truly wise. Another question?
I know the talk tonight was about evolution, but a lot of really solid biblical guys that stand on the authority of the Scripture, solid biblical teachers, they would agree with everything you talked about tonight, and yet they still want to hold on to an old earth. Do you want to say anything about that?
Sure. It's a great question. It comes up all the time. Just as a review, I have degrees in physics and engineering. I've been lecturing and researching for 30 years. So what that means is I'm right about everything I believe. And I'm glad you're laughing. It does not mean that. The only thing that means is I should probably have an opinion by now. 30 years of researching, if I didn't have an opinion, that's not very credible. So what you hear from me is my opinion. There are many Christians, like you mentioned, very sincere, very godly men and women who believe that God used the Big Bang and the earth is very old. They may reject evolution. Some actually believe in evolution. But a lot of them say, no, we don't really believe in evolution. But we believe the earth is old because it's been proven. I do not doubt for 1 second their sincerity. I do not doubt their intelligence, and I certainly don't doubt their Christianity. Their Christianity is solely based on their faith in Jesus Christ. But I would quibble with them on their understanding of Scripture and even their understanding of science. Very quickly, I give entire lectures on this, so I have to perform a miracle here and be relatively brief, so I don't go into a whole other lecture. The vast majority of those types of Christians that I run into, and I want to be very sensitive because I'm guessing there's got to be some here tonight, so I'm not trying to be offensive in any way. I'm sharing my opinion on this. I personally believe there are only 2 things that are necessary to figure out the truth in this area. 2 things. One is a copy of God's Word. This is what it looks like on the inside, in case you're curious. It's my bad sense of humor. The second thing is the Holy Spirit. if you have placed your trust in Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, the Holy Spirit can guide you into all truth. And what that means is there's something else that you don't need to figure out the truth, and that is me. You don't need some supposed expert coming along and saying, oh, trust me, I have degrees in physics and engineering. No, don't trust me. I want you to question everything you've heard me say tonight against your understanding of God's Word. The Holy Spirit is a much better teacher than I am. If you commit to studying God's Word and praying, if you feel led to conclude that God used the Big Bang and the earth is old, I would probably disagree with you, but I would have more respect for you than someone who just walks out and say, well, I believe in the 6 days thing because that's what Jay said, and apparently studied this and I trust him. No, don't trust me. Trust God's Word. Come to a different conclusion, I can accept that. I can have fellowship with other Christians who do. I do it all the time. But this is what we need, God's Word. For most of history, we did not have science. All we had is God's Word. And I'll say this, the vast majority of Christians that I know that do accept the Big Bang and an old earth, they don't do so based on the words that are in Scripture. Hebrew, the Greek, and all that. They're so convinced from science, it's got to be old. We got radiometric dating, uranium-238 cases, lead-206. I give lectures on all those things. I know the problems with them as well. But they're convinced somehow it's been proven, and in science you have to accept that, so therefore, maybe this means something different. And they're generally pretty sincere. Maybe those days, I know, those days weren't regular days. There were millions and millions and millions of years each, because, hey, God's time is not our time. And a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. And all those things sound good on the surface. And who cares anyway how or when God created? We're just here to worship Jesus. That's all that matters. And I would say, I don't know a Christian in their right mind who wouldn't want to focus on Jesus. That's a good thing. But long before Jesus was Savior, he was created. John chapter 1, Colossians 1, Hebrews 1, for him, by him, through him, all things were created. So if we're going to focus on Jesus, and we should, we need to focus on him not just as Savior, but as Creator. Here's one short thing that I think lends toward God creating, just like he said in 6 days. Jesus, who we're supposed to focus on, said in Matthew 19:4 and Mark 10:6. He's talking to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were people very arrogant about their knowledge of the Old Testament Scriptures. They hated Jesus. They're always arguing with him, trying to trap him with their questions. And they were talking to Jesus about marriage and divorce. And when Jesus responded to them, he said, haven't you read? Almost with a tinge of sarcasm, they're like, I thought you were the Pharisees who knew the Scriptures. So haven't you read that he who created them male and female from the very beginning of creation? So Jesus responded to the Pharisees saying, well, wait a minute, God created Adam and Eve at the very beginning of creation. Why is that significant? Let me show you why very quickly on a blank screen here. Let's say the left side of the screen is the beginning of the universe. Whenever that was, that's the beginning on this side. And then on that side there, that's the end. That's today. So that's our timeline from one side to the other side here. Let's say that God used the Big Bang. He is all-powerful. There's no reason God couldn't have. It's not like, well, I wish I could have done that. I'm just not strong enough. Nothing to do with his strength. So let's say that God used the Big Bang. That would mean, we'll round it off. We'll say 15 billion years ago, that's when God created everything. Then we would have to move up to about here, 2/3 of the way, about 4.6 billion years ago, to create the Earth. That's the standard story. The Earth is 4.6 billion years old. Then just after that, it's hard to tell the difference, about 3.8 billion years old, life formed. And then, going from there all the way up towards the end, very close to right at the end, modern man shows up. They say modern man, in our modern form, we've been around about 100,000 years. We've been evolving from an ape-like creature for about 6 million years. But in our modern form, we've been around about 100,000 years. Well, that would be Adam and Eve. So if God used the Big Bang, then Adam and Eve showed up at the very end of this timeline. In fact, you can do the percentages like 0.0013% away from the end. But wait a minute, we're supposed to focus on Jesus. Jesus himself, who is the Creator, said God made Adam and Eve at the very beginning of creation. Well, let's revisit our timeline. Let's say that God created everything in 6 days. Adam and Eve were created on that 6th day. That would have been roughly 6,000 years ago. Then 4,500 years ago, flood. Jesus 2,000 years ago, and then here we are today. That would put Adam and Eve at 0.00183 or whatever percent away from the beginning. Exactly what Jesus said. So if we're going to focus on Jesus, Jesus believed in 6-day creation, and Adam and Eve were here from the very beginning of creation. The other issue, I've got a whole slide on it. If God used the Big Bang, that means the earth is old, and And those layers that we see in the earth in the Grand Canyon, they accumulate over hundreds of millions of years. That's a standard story. Christians who believe in the Big Bang believe those layers accumulate over hundreds of millions of years, just like the secondary geology tells us. Well, those fossils, or those layers are filled with billions of fossils. What's a fossil? Fossils remain of a dead thing. Why does that matter? Well, if those layers were accumulating slowly over hundreds of millions of years, that means that the creatures were living back then because they apparently died and got buried. That's why we see their fossils. Well, it's a remain of a dead thing. So that means for hundreds of millions of years, as God's developing the earth, you've got death, disease, pain, suffering, bloodshed. You even have evidence of cancer and dinosaur bones. So all that's going on for hundreds of millions of years of earth history. Then when it's done, God plants a nice garden on the top. He puts Adam and Eve in it. They're saying, well, this is such a perfect world. Genesis 1:31. Very good, just like God said. No, it's not a perfect world. They are literally living on top of a graveyard of billions of dead things. So when Adam and Eve then sinned, that didn't bring death into God's world. Death had been around for hundreds of millions of years. So when you're reading Romans 5:12, that says it was by Adam's sin that brought death into the world, you say, well, I know it says that, but it doesn't really mean that because we know God used the Big Bang, and death and disease and suffering were here for hundreds of millions of years before Adam and Eve were on the planet. A lot more biblical reasons why it just doesn't fit Scripture. I won't take the time to go and do it now. If anyone wants to ask me afterwards, you stay around later, I could go on and on scientifically showing you that the vast majority of evidence we have in nature show that Earth is relatively young, and there's huge problems with the ideas of millions of years.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The young Earth, if you look at it, God gave us our ancestors, their date and how long they lived: Adam, Enoch, Abraham, Moses, etc. And of course, when you look at all those numbers, you put them on a timeline, 6,000 to 7,000 years old. You would have to obviously have the starting point of the sixth day, which firmly I believe in. But I'm sure you have that somewhere where you've kind of got all those numbers together, and it just adds up to that 7,000 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. 2 Timothy 3:16 says all Scripture is inspired by God and it's all profitable. Okay, well, what about those genealogies? So-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, blah, blah, blah. Who's going to study that? But it's in there for a reason, and part of that is you can actually add up the ages of so-and-so. Adam lived 930 years, Noah lived 950, Methuselah 969 years, and it tells you how old they were when the child was born. You can add them all up, and you can get a timeline going there. We know Jesus was here roughly, let's say, 2,000 years ago. Abraham was 2,000 years before Jesus. That's 4,000 years ago. Atheists know there was a guy named Abraham about 4,000 years ago. We don't tell them that. Well, how long was it from Abraham back to Adam? You got the genealogies, you get roughly another 2,000 years. So you get roughly 6,000 years from a biblical standpoint. It's very solid. There's no way you can expand that to get to hundreds of millions or billions of years and all that for the universe. It's not going to fit. And if you go into all the Hebrew and all that, where it's fancy, the regular days, time doesn't fit. But we're living in a society, and I have to warn you, don't start debating someone on the age of the earth. They're not going to be able to wrap their head around that. They're going to think you are crazy if you tell them God created everything in 6 days. Not because of anything they really know, but because of how they've been educated. They've been taught millions and billions of years since kindergarten on up. So I expect them to think I am crazy for bringing that up. So what I do is I start with the gospel message. And if they're doubting some of that, I go into more about the inspiration of Scripture and all that. And eventually, we back ourselves up into the creation account, and we're forced to deal with the days of creation. Logically, we got to decide what were those days, and then we can look into it. What does Scripture actually teach us from the words themselves? We have to look at it in its context. And what do we really know from science? And by that time, I've got enough credibility, and now I start sharing things like, what you're saying fits in. I've never been taught that. I didn't know that about radiation method dating. I didn't know that about carbon-14 dating. They never taught me that. So yeah, you don't know those things. You only heard one side. Now you're hearing the other side, and you'll have to decide what you believe. But this is what the Bible says. In real science, a lot of it you didn't hear is actually backing up the Scriptures are telling us all about. Any questions?
Just wanted to get your interpretation or thoughts on, in the Genesis account, we learned that God created light before he created the sun, moon, and stars. So what do you postulate, or is there a way to get a better sense of what that light was, differentiated from the the sun, moon, and stars.
Sure, excellent. God does say in the beginning, God said, let there be light, there was light. I heard one comedian say, in the beginning there was nothing. And God said, let there be light. And there was still nothing, which you can see. But Scripture does say, in the beginning God said, let there be light, and there was light. All Scripture tells us that God created light. It tells us exactly what it was all about, where it came from, other than He created, and there was light. Then later, on day 4, He said, let the sun, moon, and stars appear. I honestly believe, this is totally my guess, I'm just quoting the Scripture on this, I think one reason God did that is that He knew that His own created creatures, mankind, was going to end up worshiping the sun, because they thought the sun was the giver of light. We have Ra, the sun god, is the giver of light and all that. God's like, no, I just created that thing. That doesn't give light. I give light. In fact, I don't even need the sun to create light. I am light. I created light. And what we have is God said, let there be light, and there was light. Later on day 4, He creates the sun, moon, and stars for signs and for seasons and all these things as He describes. And what's interesting is in the end times, when Christ returns, the Bible says that God is going to destroy the heavens and the earth and create new heavens and new earth. And it says there's going to no longer be any sun. It won't be necessary because God Himself will provide the light. Most likely, just like He did in the beginning. It's interesting, as I ask Christians, if you think that Christ is returning, oh yeah, of course. You think when He comes back He's going to destroy the heavens and the earth and create new ones, like the Bible says. Oh yeah, I believe that. Is He going to take millions and billions of years to do that? Oh, He's going to do it miraculously. How come He couldn't have done that in the beginning, just like He said? They're just not being very consistent there. But with that light as well, people say, well, then, but how could you have days if you don't have the sun? We don't measure our days based on whether or not we see the sun. What do we do when it's cloudy all day? You don't see the sun. Do we not have a day? The only thing that's required to make a day is a source of light and a rotating globe. On day 1, God creates the earth, and it can be rotating in God, and it already created light. So you have days going by, and then when God creates the sun later, it's for our purpose after He creates man, so we can use the sun, the stars, days, seasons, time, all those things. But you don't need that there to have a day. He had a source of light. But on day 4, the earth switched over to using the sun for that source. So there's a lot more to it than that, but it's just interesting. The more you really look at Scripture to what it really says, it really backs up the big picture, and we need to be consistent. One really quick story, because it's useful. There was a Bible study not long ago in Wisconsin, close to my area, that said, hey, I know you travel a lot, but if you're in the area this coming Saturday, could you pop into our Bible study? We're going through Genesis. We're coming up upon the flood. There's a guy in the study who's just kind of fighting us on everything. He doesn't believe in six-day creation account. He believes in evolution. He doesn't believe in the flood. I said, okay, I'll see if I can pop in. So I did. Gave him just a little mini talk, and then towards the end we did some Q&A, and then this guy started firing some questions off, and that was the first time I realized, okay, this is the guy that's kind of skeptical. And he didn't believe in six-day creation, because he said scientists have proven evolution. It's a fact. We know it's true, so Genesis can't mean that. And we know the earth is old, and that there couldn't have been a flood. None of the geologists accept that it didn't happen, because scientists have proven that. And then I just said, oh, well, if science has proven anything, in a sense, they've shown us people don't come back from the dead. It doesn't happen. Maybe after 30 seconds or 2 minutes, but not after 3 days. It does not happen. So when you're reading in Scripture that Jesus rose again on the 3rd day, okay, we know it says that. But we know better now because science has shown us that does not happen. You have to reinterpret Scripture. And he looked at it and goes, well, now you're being sarcastic. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend you at all. I'm not meaning that at all. I'm using your logic. You said the scientists have shown us certain things, so we need to take that and go to Scripture and reinterpret it, what to believe, what not to believe. So you're rejecting Genesis and the six-day creation account and the flood because of what science has shown. But then when science shows people don't come back to the dead, you're rejecting that and believing Scripture. So you're not being consistent in this line of reasoning. Well, yeah, but Jesus was God and it was a miracle. Right? He is God and it was a miracle. Not only could Jesus rise from the dead on the 3rd day, but He could create everything in 6 days, just like He said. So I was just trying to show him that you've got these different thoughts and ideas, but you, even with your own logic, are not consistently carrying them out. And if you do that, you become your ultimate source of authority, where I'm going to think through things. Once I've got that, then I will go to God's Word and figure out what did He really mean, what am I willing to believe and what I'm not willing to believe, rather than saying, you know what, God, you are God, I'm not. This is your first shot at writing a book, and you did a pretty good job. I am going to believe it, And as I study this, I will use this as truth to then look at what the scientists say in the world around me, and I'll properly understand, interpret, and judge those things based on your word. Great question. We'll take maybe one more, and then I don't want to go all night. I love to, but you guys probably have lives. So we'll take one last question. I will close in prayer, and I'll be out in the lobby if you have additional questions.
Be real quick, do you ever debate evolutionists such as universities or other venues like that? Or does other people you know do that?
Sure, debates. I've never technically done an actual debate. The main reason is I've seen a lot of debates, and I honestly don't know if I've seen one that I thought was really good and very powerful. Typically, a debate is a clash of personalities. Who's the wittiest, the sharpest, who can get the audience to laugh at the other person, make fun of them, be derogatory, condescending, and things like that. It's just not very effective. Not many people change their minds coming to a debate. I know it does happen, so I can still use that. What I think is more effective is what we call a forum. You have the two people come. They each have their beliefs, and they each are given a chance to defend their beliefs. They're not talking about the other person. They're just saying, this is what I believe is true. Let me tell you why I believe this. The other person says, well, I believe this is true, and here's why. And you each go back and forth a little bit on your views, and then when you're done, you open it up to questions from the audience, and you go back and forth. This person gets a question, and that person. It's kind of even-handed. I did do that once so far. It was actually, I'll give you a short version of the story. It was at a Christian university. They wanted me to come in to talk about the biblical Genesis creation account, the traditional view that God actually did create things like it says in Genesis, and then they were going to bring someone else in to defend that God used evolution, what we call theistic evolution. And I thought, I wonder who they're going to bring in to defend theistic evolution. And I thought, bet you anything is one of their own professors, because that is very popular at Christian colleges now. Very few Christian colleges teach six-day creation account. Some of them teach evolution. Some of them don't teach evolution. They still teach the Big Bang and Old Earth and all that. There are very few that would teach the traditional view that we believe in, throughout most of history from coming from Scripture. So, I thought that was going to happen. I got up there, and that's what it was. It was their PhD biology professor. I'm not a biologist. I do either in physics and engineering. I had one biology class in high school. I don't remember anything from it. All my biology is self-taught. I'm not an expert. I just learned a few key things here and there. So I thought, this could be kind of intimidating. I'm generally not nervous when I speak, but I thought, this might put me on the spot. He's a PhD biology professor. And we only had so much time for the whole forum. So I said, if that's the time you're giving us, let's do this. Give each one of us 12 minutes, not much, but 12 minutes to defend our views biblically. Then we each have 12 minutes to defend our views scientifically. And then we'll each have 3 minutes just to kind of wrap things up, and then you open it up for Q&A. And when you do Q&A, have 2 microphones. This microphone will be for anyone who wants to ask me a question. That microphone will be for him. People will line up, and then you go back and forth, so it spreads the question out. Oh, that sounds great. Well, that's a good way to break things up. So I get there. We're sitting at a table about this wide. I'm right here. He's right next to me. We met each other. We were cordial to each other. He was kind of quiet. I don't know if he had done this before either. So we sat there, and they had me go first. So I had 12 minutes to defend the creation account biblically. And I just went boom, 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 lots of PowerPoint, just made strong points all the way through 12 minutes. And it was history. He just had like this Word document with a few sentences on it. He had 12 minutes now. He spent 10 of the 12 minutes discussing the age of the earth. I was surprised about it. I thought we were going to be talking about evolution and biology and all that. Not sure why he's talking about the age of the earth. 10 minutes talking about the age of the earth. The last 2 minutes, he brought out one picture of skeletons of creatures, the fossils there. They call it homology. Some of these fossils look similar, so obviously one evolved in another because there's 5 digits on the bat, and human and all that. That's one of the weakest arguments for evolution for a number of reasons. But that's all he had, one diagram in the last 2 minutes. So when he finished, I was just surprised. Oh, wait a minute. I got ahead of myself there. Sorry. I did my biblical defense 12 minutes. He was going to do his biblical defense. His 12 minutes of biblical defense was very sad. I was disappointed and sad that here was a professor at a Christian university who had very little knowledge of Scripture. One of his major points was Genesis doesn't mean what it says. said, then he quoted John 3:16, and, God died for us. And he said, do we really believe that means that anybody can be saved? I mean, can Satan be saved? Of course not. So Genesis doesn't mean that God created everything in 6 days. And I thought, wow, is that a stretch to take this passage in the New Testament and not even have it really corrected and try to say that because of that Genesis doesn't mean what it says. That's about all he had. Plus he said, well, the writers of Scripture, basically ignorant goat-herders, they weren't intelligent back then. They didn't have science. So God just made up these stories because the people wouldn't have even understood the truth back then. So he had to tell stories back then. But today, through science, we know the truth. And we know you don't take that seriously. That was his biblical defense, that evolution is true. Then we switched to the science thing, and they said, okay, this time the professor goes first scientifically. So then he 10 minutes on the age of the earth and 2 minutes with the one diagram, which was extremely weak. So when he finished, now it was my turn to go scientifically. I told the audience, I said, I really didn't come prepared to discuss the age of the earth. I said, I'd love to talk for 6 hours about it, but I said, we talked about evolution and biology and mutations and natural selection. And so I went through boom, all the PowerPoint, very powerfully in 12 minutes. And when we were done, we had 3 minutes just to summarize. So they had me go first, summarize, and he summarized, and then we went to Q&A. They had 2 mics there. And people came up, but they forgot to tell people that mic's for me and that mic's for him. So people lined up and they went back and forth, but all the questions were for him, the professor. And I was kind of frustrated. I didn't get to talk anymore. Everyone was asking questions, and he got to go on. And then I realized, well, they're asking him questions because what he was saying doesn't make any sense. This is about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. I just met someone last month who had attended that. He goes, I was there at the university when you spoke there. He says, all the students were wondering, what's going on? We don't understand what the professor's saying. He said, but everything you said made so much sense. So it was a nice confirmation that it did come across clearly. So we did the Q&A. At one point, I had to ask, can I chime in here? I don't get to say anything anymore. And I said, sure. So I get to say, well, he did respond with this, but actually it works this way. So that's why it really isn't correct. We did that for a little bit. I only got one question the whole time, and that was someone said, hey, you said you'd love to talk about the age of the earth. Can you share a little bit now? I said, sure. So I shared a few brief things. So then the whole thing was over. Lights go on in the auditorium. We take our mics off. I'll never forget this. He turned to me and he said, wow, that was good. He goes, I might use your book in my class for anyone who wants to know more about the 6-day creation. No, he goes, I'm still trying to figure all this out. And so he was kind of defensive, in a good way. He was not prepared at all. But the saddest thing is, here's the PhD professor in a Christian college. His science wasn't even good, and he didn't really even know Scripture. And it's just sad, and I'm not even going to tell you what university it is. It's not that important because there are a lot of universities like that. In fact, I'll tell you this. The Christian university I went to will now not let me speak on campus because they're teaching evolution. When I was there, they didn't teach evolution. They were very strong in biblical creation, but they switched over time, brought in different professors, and now they teach that. They wouldn't even let me speak on campus, even though I have a degree from them. I've given them money, and I don't charge them. So it's sad. And one of the professors there said he thought that what I do, telling the students that they can actually trust Scripture, is damaging to them. Meaning that they're going to find out eventually that evolution is a fact, and you can't trust the Genesis account. They're going to be disappointed and walk away from the faith. I think it's the opposite. In fact, one other quick comment that he made to me afterwards, he said, how could all science be wrong? And I responded to him by saying, do you believe that all the scientists think that the Bible is the inspired word of God? He goes, no. I said, how could all the scientists be wrong? So he's willing to believe that they could all be wrong about the Bible, the inspired word of God, but they couldn't be wrong about evolution. So again, not being consistent. And he was kind of arrogant about it because he was a PhD professor of Old Testament history, and just very sad that it's happening more and more at Christian universities. So as I close here, if you're thinking about sending your kids to college, a lot of people say, oh, these public school systems are so bad, state universities, so we should send them to a Christian college. I think, potentially, more damage can be done at a Christian university than a state university. Here's why, very quickly. If you send your children to a state university, which you can, you know what to expect. You know the professors are largely going to be humanists, some atheists, they're not going to believe that God exists, the Bible's not the inspired word of God. You know what to expect. You're not surprised when you hear it. But if you send them to a Christian college, Parents too often naively think we're sending them to church 24/7. It's awesome. You have Christian college, you have Christian students, Christian professors, they're going to be reading the Bible every day, Bible studies, chapel sessions and all that. And most Christian universities do a very good job in many different ways. A lot of good things happen at Christian universities. Too many of them, in my view, have compromised the authority of Scripture. And they teach other views about Genesis. It cuts off the foundation of Scripture. And it does more damage for a Christian student to be in. Think of it this way. You send your son or daughter to the Christian university. They're in their Old Testament history class. And the professor is awesome. He is the funniest guy they've ever met. This guy is brilliant. He knows the Old Testament forward and backwards. So they're in there the third week of class. He says, okay, open up the Bible today to Joshua chapter whatever. And just so you know that this passage probably shouldn't have been in the Bible, but that's okay. In fact, we're going to see that, just so a heads up, we're going to see that a few times throughout the semester. But don't worry, the Bible's still the inspired Word of God. It's a great book and all that. That does more damage to a Christian than going to a state university and have an atheistic professor say there's no God. So if you want to send them to a Christian college, and I'm not telling you not to, just saying check it out and just don't say and ask, do you guys believe that the Bible is from God? Yes. Ask them specific questions. Do you believe there are any errors in the Bible? Are there any extra books that are in here that shouldn't be in there? Is there anything missing that didn't get put in there that should have been? Any contradictions in the Bible? Do you think about the creation account, the 6-day creation account? Other than that, yeah, God's creator. What about the 6 days? Did God actually create 6 days? Millions of years? Did God use evolution? Was there really a flood? Ask those questions, and then when they answer them, even if they give you good answers, ask. Do all the professors subscribe to them? Because sometimes the president believes all the right things, but they have science professors teaching evolution. Sometimes it's the opposite. The professors do pretty good, but the leadership has other views. So ask a lot of questions before you send them off somewhere. You send them to a state university, get them plugged into a Christian group, get them mentoring all the way through. And they can be fine. God can use them wherever you feel led to send them. So I'm not telling you one or the other. I went to both. So between you and God, but just be aware of both and how you need to be mentoring your children. First and foremost, God's Word, so they know this very well, and then you can add a few of the scientific things that can help along the way. So with that, we'll close with a quick word of prayer, and I'll be out in the lobby if you have any additional questions. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this time we've had to look into some just really intriguing scientific evidence, but we know as fascinating as DNA is, it pales in comparison to your care for us, your creation. And I just pray for everyone here in the church here tonight. I know they fall into 2 categories, God. Most, if not almost all of God, already not only know you and believe in you, but they have a personal relationship with you through their faith in your Son, Jesus Christ. They have placed their trust in his death, burial, and resurrection for the forgiveness of their sins. We will spend eternity with you because of that, because your sins are forgiven. But then there might be some here tonight, God, who are skeptical, and I just completely honored that they would even take time to be here. This is an awesome place to be. They probably have great questions. We're sincere with that. I pray for them that tonight they would be greatly challenged in their thinking, and that tonight would be the night they would decide to place their faith in Jesus Christ. And then they have the rest of their life to figure out some of these intriguing questions, God, but they wouldn't put it off any longer, that they wouldn't leave this church without talking to the pastor or myself or someone else about the questions they have about their relationship with you as their creator. We just thank you for your graciousness and patience you show us each day. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Let's have a thanks. And if anybody wants to contribute one-time donations, there's some dish out there, but check out these videos. He is one of the best up-and-coming creation speakers we have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.